Hey there, Geeks and Geekettes. Different video for you today. This is my top 10 comic book movies. So guys, as I said in the intro, this is my top 10 comic book movies. I'm hoping to do a top 10, or bottom 10, top 10 comic book movies that I absolutely hated, because for every Dark Knight-esque film, there's a Green Lantern. And I'll see if I can do one of these lists a week, sort of every Monday, do a list of top 10s. So I'll probably do horror, comic books, top 10 all time, although that'll take some work. So without further ado, in at number 10 is Iron Man. The film that started the Marvel Cinematic Universe. What Marvel did was take a character that was pretty much a B-list Marvel character that outside of comic book fans didn't really know who he was. I was an Iron Man fan anyway because of a cartoon in the 90s that was on Fox Kids, and I did like that cartoon. I still watch that cartoon long after I should have stopped watching cartoons, and I'd watch it again. So obviously Robert Downey Jr. plays our hero, Tony Stark / Iron Man, and it showed that superhero movies didn't have to be dark. They could have comedy yet still have substance. The film was awesome. It was a massive hit with a Marvel character that a lot of people wouldn't have been aware of unless you're a comic book fan. Jon Favreau directed, did an amazing job, and casting Robert Downey Jr. was a stroke of genius. Thankfully they didn't go for Tom Cruise. So at number 9, Thor Ragnarok. Now, Thor is my favourite Marvel character, bar none. Unfortunately, the first two films, I enjoyed them. Well, I enjoyed the first one. The second one was okay. And Hemsworth was a good Thor. They just weren't very well written. There were brilliant elements to some of them. But Thor was the weak link in the MCU. Fortunately, Taika Waititi came in and changed Thor's character, and a lot of people got quite annoyed that Thor had been turned into this sort of bumbling, funny character. But something needed to change with Thor, because he wasn't a well-liked character outside of an Avengers film, and his two solo movies had let him down. So I absolutely loved Thor Ragnarok. I've got my Thor Ragnarok statue over there. The film was hilarious. Korg, Meek, Hela was a great villain. The emotional stakes in the film were sort of top notch. I mean, Thor pretty much lost everything and then lost his eye on top of it all. So really, really enjoyed the film, and I can see why they made the character changes to Thor that they did. And Thor was a different guy at this point because he'd been living on Earth amongst the humans, so I can see why the character grew. Number 8, probably going to be an unpopular addition to a top 10 list, but The Dark Knight Rises. Oh, I know that people absolutely loathe this film. I went to the cinema to watch it with my friend, or friends, and I came out blown away. I knew they would not be able to top what had come before it, but The Dark Knight Rises, it was a solid film. Tom Hardy, to express that much emotion with only this much of his face on display, was brilliant. His voice did throw me in the beginning, but you sort of get used to it as the film went on. The fight scenes, bar one guy getting killed by Batman from a punch thrown from sort of 20 yards away, but it can't be perfect. And the film itself, I loved it. I enjoyed the twist at the end. Bruce Wayne being a broken, bitter, sort of retired Bruce Wayne and retired Batman. There was not a lot I didn't like about the film. The nuclear explosion at the end, would he have saved Gotham really after 10 seconds of flying? But I'm quite happy to take my brain out of gear and watch films, to be fair, and just enjoy them for what they are. Christopher Nolan, obviously a filmmaking genius. Number 7, Captain America: The Winter Soldier. This film shocked me. It was so good. It didn't look or feel like any of the other Marvel films. And what they did with Captain America after the first Avenger, I loved the first Avenger, but there was some sort of, it was a bit cheesy in places, but the character's cheesy. And then to put him in the Winter Soldier, where the emotional stakes were so high, where the villain, obviously Bucky Barnes as the Winter Soldier, he looked dangerous. He looked like he could beat Captain America in this movie. He was vicious, and the film was all the better for it. The Black Widow in the movie was great. The introduction of Falcon, there was humour in there, but there was not a great deal of humour. It was quite a dark film, and unlike the other Marvel movies, this didn't feel like a comic book movie. This felt like a thriller. It felt like a spy thriller, and obviously Robert Redford coming into the cast and Hydra taking over S.H.I.E.L.D. This film was massive and had implications for the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and the fight scenes and the fight choreography in this thing, they were outstanding. Really, really loved that film. So number 6, I'm going to have to put Deadpool in, because Deadpool completely bucked the trend. Comic books were getting lighter, they were getting sort of more family orientated, and then Ryan Reynolds, who people had been screaming to be Deadpool again after what they did in X-Men Origins Wolverine, to bring him in and do such a perfect rendition of Deadpool, or Slade, it wasn't Slade, Wade Wilson. The film was perfect. The comedy, the sort of the effects, some of it was quite cheap looking effects, but it worked for what the film was. The fourth wall breaking was there. Ryan Reynolds is Deadpool. It was absolutely brilliant. It was so funny. I remember the first time watching it, just laughing from beginning to end, and I almost laughed as much at the second one. I'll put in some honourable mentions here. The first Blade film, because that film was incredible. Nobody on the planet knew who Blade was outside of Marvel comic books and maybe the Spider-Man animated series in the 90s. Then another honourable mention would be Blade 2. Much more of the same of the first Blade. Really enjoyed it. Christopher Reeve's first Superman, or Richard Donner's Superman. As a kid, I absolutely loved that film. Kick-Ass, that's got to have an honourable mention. I loved that film. I'd never even read the comics, saw the film and then went and got the comics. Loved it. Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2, that's got to have an honourable mention. Now, I loved Spider-Man. As a child, Spider-Man was sort of my comic book hero that I loved. My dad used to cut clip-ins out of a Sunday paper because there were Spider-Man clips in there, and I'd keep them all. But I didn't like Tobey Maguire. I didn't like Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man, and I didn't like him as Peter Parker. He was whiny, and at the time when that film came out, I think I was 18 or 19, and to have a 16-year-old Spider-Man that looked the same age as my uncle, the guy was clearly in his 30s playing a teenager, and Kirsten Dunst got right on my nerves. No, I just didn't. The second one was a step up. The third one was absolutely abysmal. I actually walked out to the cinema before the end of the fight with Venom. And lastly, honourable mentions is X-Men 2. I'm a massive X-Men fan. I absolutely adored the X-Men when I was a kid. The first movie came out and everyone raved about it, and I was quite disappointed. To me, it didn't stick to the comics anywhere near enough. I didn't like the black leather. X2 though, X2 almost made this top 10 list, but obviously with what happened at the end of the film influencing X-Men 3 and that entire mess, and then, wow. I enjoyed X-Men First Class. I loved Days of Future Past. But outside of X2, Days of Future Past, I don't think there has been a good X-Men film. They've been okay, some of them, but the last two have been absolute garbage. They have been shocking. And considering the people they've cast in these movies, they had no right being that bad. Sorry, there was a helicopter going over. Back to my list. Number 5, the original, the Batman that made me fall in love with the character. Michael Keaton's Batman, 1989, Tim Burton directed. I don't even know what to say. Obviously, I've got pretty much the entire collection of the 1989 Batman figures there. I've got the 1989 Batmobile. I don't have the rockets to go in it. I've got the Batwing. I've got 2 Jokers. I've got the hoses, the squirters that attach. I've got a carded Batman. I've got a loose Batman. I've got Bob the Goon. I've got die-cast figures, and I've got a Batwing water blaster. I've even got some die-cast. Oh, I just killed my shelf. And I've even got things like that. That's how much I love this film. I've got the Joker motorcycle and sidecar. I think I've got some other 89 stuff hidden over there, but these are the original Kenner 1989 toy runs. My dad had worked away in London, came home, bought me and my brother a massive Batman, Tim Burton's Batman poster each, but we couldn't go to the cinema to watch it because he was 15 and I was 8. As soon as it came out on video, he rented it out for us, and I think I must have watched it 3 or 4 times in a row. And then he bought it for us, and that video got played until it snapped, and then we bought another copy of it. I absolutely adored that film. Number 4, Avengers Assemble. There's nothing bad about this film. There is nothing that I could pick holes in with this film. Maybe there's not enough Hulk in it, because when Hulk is on screen, he shines. I loved this film. The casting was all perfect. Everything coming together was perfect. The scope of the movie was perfect. The villain was perfect. Just an awesome, awesome film. And it's only beaten by other Avengers films, in my opinion. So we'll just move straight on to them. Number 3, Avengers Infinity War. It was possibly my favourite film when it came out. I loved that film. I went back to the cinema to watch it. I got it on DVD. I couldn't wait to watch it again and again. And the more times I watched it, the more stuff I picked out. Such an emotional clout at the end of the film that I was worried they wouldn't be able to beat in the follow-up. And wow, did they beat it. Again, there's nothing. I can't pick holes in this film. People will sit there and find little plot holes, and I'm not going to do that. I mean, the Russo brothers had to get from Civil War to this point, encompassing everyone else's work, and I think what they did was a stroke of genius. It was absolutely incredible. Which brings me straight into my number 2, which is Avengers Endgame. Now, I know a lot of people preferred Infinity War. I preferred Endgame. Now, take all the... Oh, time travel doesn't work. Nobody's ever time travelled that we're aware of, so let's just say we would know it worked. So it's a guess. Let them get on with it. It worked as a good plot device. There were some holes in that stood out a little bit. Tony Stark and Captain America time travelling again and then coming back. Without, the big platform that they had to use to time travel. They just time travelled from the past. But I can skip over that for everything else that this film was. They upped the ante, they upped the emotional stakes. It looked better than Infinity War. There was the special effects, even though these films were shot back to back, the tone shift worked better for me for Endgame. And obviously the emotional gut punch at the end of the film, and the sort of almost the second act. It tied off the first 4 phases absolutely brilliantly. There's nothing else I can say about it. I absolutely loved what the Russo brothers did. And Infinity War and Endgame, as a concise, if you watch them back to back, absolutely it's outstanding what the Russo brothers did. And it's my high opinion of those two movies. See how much I think of this next one, and you can probably guess what it is, but it is The Dark Knight. Heath Ledger's performance. I'll be completely honest. I was one of those people that when Heath Ledger was cast, that laughed. Have you seen who they cast? Pretty boy. Has he got the acting chops? What has he done apart from Knight's Tale? This is going to be awful, blah, 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 blah. And wow, did Heath Ledger prove everyone wrong. And not because he died afterwards, but because the guy made the Joker his own. He absolutely owned that role. He made the Joker more sinister than we've ever seen him. He was kind of funny as well. The whole pencil trick, that was funny. But the score of the film is absolutely perfect. That sort of the tone of it, and that it get the sound pitch was getting higher and higher and higher and building anticipation. It was like the sound was designed to speed your heart rate up. And the Joker was dangerous in this film. This film, it was like, this guy's going to bring down Bruce and Gotham. And for no reason other than he wanted to. I liked the multiple backstories. I liked the makeup instead of him being bleached. I liked that it was a real world approach, yet so ridiculous. I think Christian Bale's Batman, aside, I think he was a brilliant Batman. Was he a bit skinny to play Batman? Well, you could say that, but you know, the guy had a tech suit on, and I liked the tech suit. I liked they tried to keep it real world based. I like Michael Caine as Alfred. Alfred was actually quite funny and lovable in it. The casting was perfect. The Two-Face story was outstanding. How to make a character like Two-Face that is really quite cheesy, how to make that so well and different to the comics and not annoy every comic book fan on the planet was a stroke of genius. But the score, the look of the film, the action scenes, the sort of the heart of the film, it was absolutely outstanding. If I was to do, or when I do my top 10 movies of all time, this will feature very highly in the top. For a long time, if anyone had ever asked me, this was my favourite film of all time. The pop culture that this thing created, you couldn't go anywhere without seeing Heath Ledger's Joker. Halloween parties, fancy dress parties, bank holiday parties, there would be a Heath Ledger's Joker. Even now, this many years later, you go to Comic Con and there are 3 or 4 Heath Ledger Jokers in a Cardiff Comic Con where it's not that busy. Absolutely iconic, and I struggle to think that anyone will be a better Joker than him. I'm hoping Joaquin Phoenix Joker does work, but it's not canon, so I can like it as much if this is good. I will get around to seeing that. Obviously, I've got my Christian Bale Batman there. I think I've got one down there. No, I've got 3 in there. I've got 2 Heath Ledger Jokers, but 1 is rubbish. And I've also got this. Comes complete with Batman. They don't make toys like this anymore. This is epic. My stepson. This was my stepson's. He gave up on his comic collections and his toy collections, and now it belongs to me. So guys, that is my top 10 list of comic book movies. Probably some controversial entries in there that some of you might not like, but that's absolutely fine. It's only my opinion and not something I'm forcing on anyone. If you guys have got your own top 10 lists, comment down below. Let me know what your top 10 is. You know, there's no right or wrong answers to it. There is a wrong answer. If you say Ghost Rider Spirit Avengers in your top 10, you need to go and have a look yourself in the mirror. Maybe shake yourself a little bit, because that film was awful. So bad. So was the new Fantastic Four film. That was garbage too. Tangent, anyone? So guys, thanks for tuning in. Please like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. Let me know what your thoughts are, what your top 10 films are, and hopefully I'll do one of these every Monday until I run out of lists of films and geeky stuff. So thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys soon. Goodbye.